And okay, we're on. It's official. So I hope everyone is well, and we'll be able to start now with the prayer, please. Okay, and as best as we can in a coordinated time lag fashion. Master of all worlds, highest power, merciful parent of compassion, in your presence, eternal one, source of strength for us, as you have been for our ancestors, we very humbly acknowledge you. What are we? What is our life that you have done such great kindness to us? Therefore, we place our appeals before you, so that you may forgive and absolve us of all our faults and failings, that our faults never become barriers between us and you. And may it be your desire to prepare our hearts to feel awe and love for you. May you listen to these words of ours, and may you open our encumbered hearts to the mysteries of your Torah. May this, our study, be a source of pleasure before your throne of glory, like sweet incense. May you shower down upon us the light of our soul source in all the ways in which we define ourselves. May the sparks of your holy servants, through whom you have revealed these words to the world, shine and sparkle. May their merit, their ancestors' merit, and the merit of their Torah, their innocence, and their holiness stand for us, so as to prevent us from stumbling when we study these words. In their merit, may our eyes be illumined by what we study, as in the saying of the sweet singer of Israel, open my eyes, that I may gaze into wonders of your Torah. May the words of my mouth and the thoughts of my heart be acceptable to you, my rock, Redeemer. For it is the eternal who grants wisdom. It is from his mouth knowledge and understanding issue forth. Na 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 na. Oh, na 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 na. Oh, na 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 na. Na 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 na. Good evening to everyone.
Good evening.
Good evening, Rabbi.
We're on page yes, we're on page 258. I'm going to ask that everybody mute themselves until such time as they want to say something. This way, if everybody mutes themselves, then we won't have background distractions to get in the way. And I'm sorry that I'm not muting myself, but I can't help it. So if my window starts banging, just forgive me. But anyway, we're on page 258. And we have been, we're in the middle of a celebration of the Torah. The Zohar talks about this connection, this intertwining of God and the Torah and the human being and the world. And we had the notion of the microcosm and the macrocosm, and the human being exemplifies in the complexity and the wholeness of her entire organism, the complexity and the interconnectedness of everything that's in the world. Everything in the world is connected one with the other. Every limb and sinew of our body is connected with everything else. The implication being that everything is necessary and everything has some kind of function to play, even if we don't know what it is. And then we get to the third paragraph on the page, 258. And let's start from there. Okay, all these resemble the Torah. So now I will ask for somebody to unmute and please volunteer to read. Who's going to be the
I'll
reader?
do it.
Thank you.
All these resemble Torah, for Torah is entirely members, joints, sections, standing one upon another, all arrayed, becoming one body. When David saw this handiwork, he opened and said, O Yud-He Vav-He, how manifold are your works! In wisdom you have made them all. The earth is full of your creatures.
Okay, so we read this last week, but this is we're starting out the next piece here. The Torah also has sections to it, and as the note 8 points out, the word in Hebrew or Aramaic, the word perek in Hebrew, and here pirkin is the plural in Aramaic, means both joints, and it also means chapters, sections. So the analogy between the body of the human being and the body of the Torah is indicated by that kind of language. And in fact, we use the word guf, the body, We use it in English too, right? The body of the document, or something like that. It means the basic 258, the bulk or the main part of something. So the word in Hebrew is guf, and we have a phrase guf hazohar, the body of the Zohar. That's actually what we're studying, and all of the extra pieces that are also part of the library of the Zohar, we're basically ignoring. Every once in a while, I bring in a little piece from there, but it's not what we're doing right now. And that was a choice, the editorial choice of Danny Matt, was to just go straight through the Guf HaZohar rather than follow what we have on a page. So, for instance, if you look at a page of a traditional Zohar, here's where Toldot starts, right here. Here's where Toldot starts. And you can see that the printing is actually in two columns. This is Zohar, and this is Midrash HaNe'elam. It's a different literary piece of the Zoharic library. We're reading this. We're ignoring this. This is called Guf HaZohar. It's called the body of the Zohar, the main bulk of the Zohar. We also have a phrase, Gufei Torah. And when we talk about Gufei Torah, this is a rabbinic phrase, and Gufei Torah means the most essential parts of the Torah, the real body bulk of the Torah. So the image of the Torah as a body is found in one way or another throughout traditional literature, and here the Zohar pushes it in its way, as always, in a kind of a hyper literal way. And it says that every piece of the Torah is connected with every other piece of the Torah. There's a rabbinic phrase that says Kol HaTorah Kula Inyan Echadhu, that the whole Torah is actually only just one topic. There's no such thing as going off on a tangent. There's no such thing as going off on an irrelevant part of the Torah by you're studying the Mishkan, and then all of a sudden you decide that you want to talk about the death of Moses. No, everything is connected. All parts of the Torah are one organism. So here the Zohar says the same thing, and each are in that kind of amazing complexity and unity at the same time. This, of course, the one body, Gufa Chada, that's here. The one body also alludes to the oneness of the complexity of God. God is also, when we picture the Sfirot, or sometimes in other ways of picturing God, we understand the Sfirot as sometimes as a tree, but also sometimes as a body. So that different Sfirot are the torso, or the legs, and so on. So the idea is that everything, no matter how seemingly distinct it is from something else, is actually part and parcel of the same organism, the same unity. So that's why David said, "How marabu ma'asecha Hashem." All of your works, they're all part of your source of being, and you've made them all kulam b'chokhmah asita. Chokhmah is another word sometimes for Torah, and sometimes for chokhmah as the initial generative force in God, and that's that single source. Even though they are all multiple, diverse items or entities, they all come back to chokhmah. They all come back to one single source. The whole world with all of your creatures is all yours. We talked last time just for a second, and that's something to just reiterate. In the same way that we don't always necessarily understand the connection, then that's possible with regard to the Torah as well. We posit as an axiom that everything is connected, but then perceiving that connection, understanding that connection may or may not be possible, or may or may not be something that we achieve at any given time. And that's what the next paragraph starts talking about. Go ahead.
Within Torah abide all supernal sealed mysteries, ungraspable. Within Torah abide all supernal matters, revealed and unrevealed. Within Torah abide all things above and below. All things of this world, all things of the world that is coming abide within Torah. Yet no one perceives or knows them. So it is written, who can express the mighty acts of Yud-He Vav-He or declare all his praise?
Okay, so here we have a kind of a poetic, repetitive set of declarations, right? Within the Torah, within the Torah, within the Torah, again and again and again. Some commentators saw this as a kind of a layered set of declarations. There are so many levels of meaning in the Torah. There's a famous paradigm, a famous model of the fourfold levels of understanding the Torah, but that's not necessary for us to adopt here, although later Kabbalists saw that as crucial. When we say four sages went into Pardes, into the orchard, the word Pardes, like paradise, this is understood as four different sages who had four different mystical experiences, and three of the four sages were unsuccessful in their mystical quest, and only Rabbi Akiva was successful. Elisha ben Avuya became a heretic. He couldn't take the mystical understandings. One went crazy, one died, Ben Zoma, Ben Azai. But the four became the four levels became attached to the four letters of Pardes: Pshat, Remez, Drash, Sod. Pshat, the straightforward meaning. Remez, some kind of hint or allusion. Drash, investigating, like the word midrash. And then Sod, the secret, the esoteric, the mystical meaning. So this was a later development that happened shortly after the Zohar was completed. It's found in the Tikkunim, which is another literary stratum of the Zohar, a late stratum. But in the Zohar itself, we don't quite have that. So we can just read this not as levels of meaning, but as just a kind of a almost mystical chant, right? So what is in the Torah? The Torah, all supernal sealed mysteries that are ungraspable. So that would be the deepest, that would be the most incomprehensible mysteries. They're in the Torah. Now, of course, we could ask a simple kind of question. What's the point of them being in the Torah if we can't grasp them? What does that mean? Then it says, within the Torah abide all supernal matters revealed and unrevealed. So that becomes a little bit more conditioned, that there are some mysteries, again, supernal matters, and yet they have been revealed to us. Some of them have been revealed and some of them have not been revealed. The question then would be again, well, what's the point of the unrevealed mysteries? The revealed ones, we got it. Good. That's the whole idea of communicating the Torah. But what is the point of having the unrevealed mysteries there? And then the third sentence, within Torah abide all things above and below. So this is a key to sort of looking at the world, that everything that is in the Torah is encompassed in the Torah is encompassed everything, both heavenly matters and mundane matters. Okay, and that would be a key, as the Zohar employs it again and again and again, for reading the Torah, reading the stories, for instance. The stories are mundane, down here stories, and yet they also reflect on something in the divine heavenly realm. So these three statements seem to go downward in their abstruseness, right? First one is about incomprehensibility. The second one is, well, half and half. And then the third one is, let me give you a key to how to see what's going on. Everything that you see, which is revealed to you, actually alludes to something above in the heavens. Does anybody want to offer any kind of response or any kind of idea? What's the point of having this stuff that's completely unrevealed or that's completely ungraspable? What's the point of having that in the Torah? What good is it to have stuff that we can't understand?
Something to look for, something to study, to try to understand, even though you may not ever actually do it. It's the journey that's important, not the result necessarily.
I would like to remind everyone that God referred to the Torah in the first place in order to create the universe and the world. So it may not be understandable to us, but evidently he needed it in there for his own reference.
Okay. So, and we talked about the idea that God using the Torah as a reference has to be understood. Again, here we go back to comprehension and so on, as we have to go through past the sense of distinction between Torah and God. And we have to get to a point where we understand the Torah as included in God and as identified with God, right? Remember that? So if that's the case, then you can't ask what's the point of the Torah having stuff that we can't grasp. It can't help but having stuff that we can't grasp because it's God. So there has to be elements or realms or levels or qualities or some kind of essential part of the Torah. If the Torah is God coming forward and creating the world, God's inner being turning itself outwards toward us, that turning outwards is amazing, but that turning outwards doesn't exhaust God's being. God didn't use God's self up by becoming the creator of the world. There's always more to God than we can possibly grasp. So therefore, the Torah has to have more than we can possibly grasp because the Torah is of God's essence. The Torah is God's own energy coming forward to us. And it's important for us to get that. It's important for us, I think, Craig's point is an important point. We're going to get to it in a second. That in that second level, what I would say is there's revealed and there's unrevealed. The unrevealed, we should know that it's there because that's where we have to try to get to it. We have to try to see if we can ourselves pry open some of those extra secrets. This is why the Torah was given to us and not just left up in limbo someplace in eternity. We are called upon, as the Zohar said in the previous page, to create new and delightful words and vibrations of Torah. So that's our job. Our job is to respond to the Torah and to respond to that sense of mystery. And yet at the same time, we should never think that we've got it figured out.
Is this the challenge of Kedoshim Tihu?
What do you mean?
Well, if we're imitating God, we have to, by studying, we're attempting to, I don't know, what's the right way to put it? We're trying to peer into his secrets.
We are definitely trying to peer into his secrets. And what we have in this, what I'm trying to... who's this? Hello? Somebody said something, I didn't catch it. What I'm trying to say about this piece in the Zohar is that we are called to peer into the secrets. We're invited by God to peer into the secrets. But we should never imagine that we can actually crack the whole code. we will discover new insights. We will discover new, we will unpack certain mysteries that remained mysteries before. But it would be a fatal error of hubris, Jewish hubris, to think that we have it all figured out. To think that we have it all, 1 second, to think that we have it all within our grasp. And of course, that's the danger in many ways of any intellectual pursuit, when you start getting a little bit too cocky or too comfortable or too confident in your own powers of analysis or your grasp of something, and you think that you got it all done, you got it all figured out. And what the Zohar is saying is constantly stretch to try to get more and more, but know that there's always, like a horizon, there's always the ungraspable. Yeah, Len, what do you want to say?
Yeah, isn't the famous phrase in, I believe it's Deuteronomy, that that the mysteries are for God, and we should not be concerned about that, but we should be concerned with what we can be concerned with. It's along those lines. It's almost anti-mystical. Don't go there. We know it's there, but don't try too much.
Right. So good. So that brings up attention, right? That brings up attention. We have phrases in the rabbinic literature. Bamufla mimcha al tidrosh. It's a verse, but they said things that are too wondrous for you, don't go there. Right? And the four who entered the orchard, the pardes, that story is used as a warning story. Watch it. Don't be so quick to jump into this kind of a quest, because it's dangerous and you may not be worthy and you may not be equipped to do it, and you may encounter things that you won't be able to handle. And the fascination with mystery, and also the desire for mystery, but then the sense of that awe and the sense of that trepidation and the sense of the danger play back and forth in attention. This is in our Torah readings. This is the whole concept, back to David's point about Kedusha. Holiness is depicted again and again in the Torah as both something desirable to attain, something to be cherished. Kedoshim tihiyu, you shall try to be holy just like I am holy. And at the same time, when you trespass on the holy, you get zapped. So we will have the story, spoiler alert, we'll have a story of Aaron's two sons who go in where they shouldn't have gone in. So this is a real back and forth. When are you supposed to strive for more, and when, and what kind of more, and where, and when are you not? What's the true sense of humility? No, it's beyond me. I won't go into that. There's an ongoing theme among many great rabbis who were halachic giants, who wanted to keep the Zohar and wanted to keep the whole mystical tradition at arm's length. And they would say, and these were geniuses, right? These were rabbinic virtuosi. They knew the Torah backwards and forwards, and they would say, I don't know anything about this hidden stuff. I only know what the Talmud is talking about. I only know what the Shulchan Aruch is talking about. I only know Nigla. I only know the revealed. I'm not going into the unrevealed. It's not for me. I'm not capable. They would talk about it in a very humble way, but sometimes that humility was actually not a humility, but a disdain. It was a rejection. It was saying, I know that stuff is narishkeit. I know that stuff is basically a bunch of baloney and dangerous superstition. So I'm not going to go there. Of course, I don't want to start getting into fights with people. I know that many people think it's very holy. So I just say, you know what? It's so holy that it's too holy for me. On a musical note for Len, for instance, Rabbi Soloveitchik, Rabbi Yoshe Ber Soloveitchik, he was opposed to people concluding Shabbat services with Anem Zmirot, because he said it's not a little ditty, it's not some happy little song that some little kid should sing. It's very deep mystical stuff, and nobody should go there. It's not appropriate for us to sing about stuff that we have no idea what we're talking about. So that was a kind of a mixture of respect, and also a kind of a rejection. So back to here though, this fascination that we have, this curiosity that we have, this drive that we have to understand more, to grasp more, to connect in new ways, in deeper ways, is a deep human impulse. And then the question is, when do we give up? When do we say, no, hanistarot l'Hashem Elokeinu, haniglot lanu v'neinu ad olam? That's the verse that Len quoted before. The hidden matters, that's for God. It's the obvious, revealed matters that are for us and our children forever and ever. Of course, those words are actually put with dots in the Torah. On top of them, they're written with dots, meaning, this is actually not so simple. And understanding that whole set of words is a complicated and ongoing discussion, precisely because nobody can be clear and convince everybody else where you draw the line. What does it mean, hidden? If you say, look, let's get down to Pesach. For many mystically inclined people, that's part of the game of the Afikoman. Part of the game of the Afikoman is to find what is hidden. That little game, that little childish, silly game, is actually a taste, a little hint of what it means to be in an innocent, wholehearted quest for the mysteries, for that which is hidden. And just like certain little kids can get into that with their whole heart and soul, and we look at it from above, and we look at it from a sense of maturity, and we take, it's cute, we can take joy in it. If we only had that kind of second naivete, that would be great. And that's part of what the mystics would say. Yeah, that's really what it's about, is to really want to find what is hidden. So the phrase that's quoted here, the verse that's quoted is Mi Yimalel Gvurot Hashem Yashmiya Kol Tilato. Who can express the mighty acts of God or declare all his praise? Sometimes you read it, it could be read in a different way, right? The one who can express all of God's mighty acts, then they could praise God completely. But of course, the point is, it's a kind of rhetorical. Who could do that? Nobody. Nobody can declare all of God's mighty acts. Therefore, no one should think that you can exhaust the praise for God. Right? There's a story in the Talmud that when the Siddur, when our prayers were still in flux, and people were still creating and debating what to say, what not to say, how to say it. So there's a story that one person was designated to be the Shliach Tzibur, to be the person who was leading the service, and he got carried away. And he started to say, God, Hakel, Hagadol, Hagibor, Vahanora, Vahachanun, Vaharachum, Vahanistar, Vahanigle, and he starts going on and on and on, and he says, a whole, 15 different kinds of adjectives for God. And then the rabbi of the minyan, so to speak, and unfortunately I can't remember who it was, said, "Oh yeah, is that all? Are you finished now? Now you've said it all. Now you've said all of God's praise." So in other words, what he was saying is, doesn't matter how much you say. However much you say is just a drop in the bucket. It's minuscule compared to what God is. So that inherent over abundance that can never be reached is of the essence of God. So that's one way to read this, right? Okay. Come and see.
Before we go,
Come and
Okay.
Solomon,
before we go,
David, wait 1 second. Yeah, go ahead, David.
you're talking about the Torah as the essence of God. Are you creating a sort of unity?
Yes.
You are. So
Israel ve'oraita ve'kudsha b'richu chadhu. Right? Israel, the Torah, and the Holy Blessed One are all one unity.
okay, I have to.
This is something to dwell on for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Yes. And I'm speaking for myself as well. Absolutely. Yeah.
come and see. Solomon came and sought to comprehend the words of Torah, the fine points of Torah, but he was unable and exclaimed, I said, I will be wise, but it is beyond me. David said, uncover my eyes so that I can see wonders out of your Torah.
Okay. So David's verse is the verse that we say at the end of our prayer that we use to begin each time that we get together to study Zohar. Ga'aleinai yabita niflaot mitoratecha. Right? Open my eyes so that I can see the wonders from your Torah. What's the difference between Solomon and David, according to this paragraph?
Going out on a limb, Solomon seems to be saying, I give up. I tried. I can't do it. It's beyond me. That's the end. I give up. David is saying, I don't understand it now, but with your help, I might be able to understand it.
Perfect. Right. I think that's it. Solomon, of course, is the most, the wisest of any person in the world. Right. He's famous for that. And God gave Solomon wisdom, right? Hashem natan chokhmah l'shlomo. Solomon asked God to give him wisdom, but Solomon is this tragic figure, right? Solomon starts out so promising and so glorious and so impressive, and by the end of his life, he's a huge disappointment. He starts off with all of these gifts. He starts off with a real surge of fulfilling all of his father's dreams. He's the one who builds this magnificent temple, right? That his father was not eligible to do because God said, no, you can't do it. Solomon is the king of peace, the prince of peace, so to speak. He's the one who doesn't get into any battle. He doesn't spill blood. He makes alliances with all of the other peoples around him. He makes friendships. But eventually, little by little, we have his getting sucked into unfortunate choices, right? His multiple, hundreds and hundreds of wives that he marries. The Tanakh says they led his heart astray. They led him away from the straight path, and we have Kohelet as being his last literary product, and it's full of what can I say? A kind of a sense of defeat and exhaustion and bitterness, and finally, whether the version we have as it is, whether that's the original or not, goes, okay, Sof Davar, in the end, look, okay, just follow God's ways. I give up. Because the way the rabbinic tradition imagines it, he ended up, with the fatal flaw of hubris in this very Jewish way. He thought he could figure it all out. He thought he said, you know what? I understand the Torah backwards and forwards. And if the Torah says that you shouldn't have too many wives because that will be dangerous, there'll be a distraction for you, they'll lead you astray. Okay, now since I got it, I got the message, then I'm now armed against that happening to me, and now it won't happen to me. So therefore, because I have that critical ability, because I have that sense of understanding, I am now protected against any possible ill-considered decision, irrational decision. And of course, he ends up stumbling all through. So that's where Solomon here is put up as the person who tries. He tries to understand, tries and tries and tries, and then he finally gives up. And he says, okay, forget it. I tried. I did my best. It doesn't work. I can't make any sense of this. I'm out of here. And as opposed to his father, King David, and of course we have to just limit this now to here, where King David says, I will never give up, but I can't do it by myself. Solomon, in the end, takes all of his God-given wisdom and forgets about God and thinks it's his. It's been given to him, and now it's all his. David says, I need you, God. Galenai. I need you, God, to open my eyes so that I can look into your Torah and perceive the mysteries that are there. Even within Torah, again, this is a tension. We have this at the very beginning of the Tehillim, the very beginning of Psalms, which reads as follows. Psalm number 1. Ashrei ha'isha shelo halach b'atzat rishayim u'v'derech chata'im lo amad u'v'moshav leitzim lo yashav. How fortunate, how happy is the person who doesn't follow the advice of the wicked, doesn't follow the path of the sinners, doesn't stay with those who are not serious. He doesn't hang out with them. He doesn't dwell with them. Ki'im b'torat Hashem chefzo. Rather, his whole desire is in God's Torah, uvetorato yehege yomam v'layla, and he constantly studies his Torah day and night. So the rabbis read this second verse, and they read, Ki im b'torat Hashem cheptzo. No, rather his whole desire is in God's Torah, uvetorato yehege yomam v'layla, and by studying, by desiring the Torah becomes his. Not God's, capital H, but small h. Now it's his Torah. We've had this discussion before, the famous story in the Gemara, when we have Rabbi Eliezer fighting with all the other rabbis about a particular issue of ritual purity or impurity. And he says, I'm right. And God sends all kinds of signs and miracles from heaven to show that he's right. But the rabbis say, no, we don't see it that way. It doesn't make any sense to us. And we're the custodians of the Torah. Lo bashamayim hi. It's our Torah now. It's not God dictating to us. So there we have this, a pretty arrogant, possibly, claim that what we say goes. It's no longer the God's Torah. Once we start studying it, it's no longer Torat Hashem. We want it, we ask for it, we get it, and then it's ours. So I'm going to hold on one second. So the back and forth, the push and pull, is this God's Torah or is it our Torah? Well, it is our Torah in the sense that nobody else is going to look at it and try to live by it. But what's the it? that comes back to the question we had before. What is the Torah? Where is the Torah coming from? If the Torah is, in some sense, God's own neshama being given over to us, then the fact that it's given over to us doesn't mean that now we just do whatever the heck we want. It's God's neshama that we have to take care of. It's God's neshama that we have to be the custodians of. And that's the challenge that we have here. There's another famous story which I love very much, and I've told it not too long ago, where the Gemara has an image of Rava, who can't figure something out in his learning, and he ends up turning himself into a pretzel, and his arms are like tangled up, and he ends up with his hands under his thighs, and he's like holding himself so tightly that he's bleeding. And a pagan goes by and says, "Boy, are you stupid. You're such an impetuous people. God offered you the Torah, and before you even looked into the Torah to see whether it makes any sense, you said na'aseh v'nishma. Okay, yes, we'll do it, and then we'll study it, and then we'll see what it means." So he says, you're too impetuous. You should have first studied it, decided whether it was worthy, decided whether it makes any sense. And Rava says back to him, no, we love and trust God, and therefore when God gave us something, we knew that it was going to be okay. We knew that it was going to be good for us. That now then opens the door for us to try to figure it out. We may not be able to figure it out today, but we will have faith that it's worth figuring out. So that's what David is saying. God, with your help, with your sense that you are part of this, we will continually strive to keep on going after that which is hidden from us, that which is a mysterious part of Torah, that which seems like it's meaningless, that which seems like it's repugnant. We will take every piece of Torah that we can immediately embrace, and we'll figure out how are we going to be able to embrace it? How are we going to be able to take it? Okay, we'll continue. Come and see.
Come and see. Of Solomon is written, he spoke 3,000 proverbs, and his songs numbered 1,005. They have already established that every single proverb he spoke implied 1,005 meanings. If this is so with the words of Solomon, who was flesh and blood, how much more so with words of Torah spoken by the Blessed Holy One? Every single word contains countless parables, songs, praises, supernal secrets, countless varieties of wisdom. So, who can express the mighty acts of Yud-He Vav-He?
Okay, so how do we read this argument? It's an analogy and then an argument like we had the other day, right? It's an a fortiori. How much more so? How much more so arguments only work when you're comparing apples and apples, right? So what's the comparison here between the man-made literature, cultural production that we're ascribing to Solomon and the Torah? And if you want to take out the word Solomon and put in Shakespeare or put in Milton or Tolstoy or God knows who else, what are they saying, right? When they say, if this is the words of so-and-so who was flesh and blood, and look at how many meanings we can squeeze out of it. Look at how many, levels of interpretation we can get out of it. Then how much more so God's words? So what can somebody say something about that in their own words or in their own experience? All right, so going once, twice, 3 times. So I think that we have, again, this is an experience many of us have had. Join a book club. Read the same book, and then see, how many people have completely seen the book exactly the way you see it, or have seen exactly what you've seen, right? Even if you all agree in the end about what kind of book it is and what it's about, this person sees this person sees that. They're reading the same words, they're reading the same pages, but different people see different aspects of the total, and different people sometimes can argue: is this an admirable character? Is it not? What's really happening underneath the surface? What is the main theme of this book? What is it concerned with? I mean, we can have endless and endless discussions, and I mentioned Shakespeare or somebody like that, and the literature on Shakespeare is endless, right? Every single one of Shakespeare's plays has had so much analysis and so much new stuff added by the next person and the next person and the next person. There's so much of the concealed that has been revealed. So the argument here is, so if that's the case with human productions of stories and expressions, communication, if that's the case with human communication, how much more so when it's divine communication? So why is that how much more so? I mean, what it's saying is that in some essential way, all communication has something in common, whether it's from God or from human beings. It's just that God is better, or God is deeper, or God is even more abundantly profound, right? It's like the difference between Shakespeare and some best-selling author today who will be forgotten in a generation, right? We could say it that way, right? God is just a better writer. God is just a better author than Solomon or Shakespeare. Just as Shakespeare is a better author than whoever. So is that the whole thing? I mean, wouldn't we say that there is a complete break between the comparison of a human and God? When God, when God looks into the Torah, when God communicates Torah, God communicates a complete reality, right? What every human being does when they write a book or a theory or a philosophy is they talk about reality, but they don't make reality, right? So there's some very major qualitative difference between the two, right? And yet the Zohar wants to make this comparison and say, we can still make the comparison, because in the end, once the Torah is here, we've talked about this before, last week or the week before, once the Torah is here, it then sits on the bookshelf next to Shakespeare, right? It has lost its complete mystical aura. 1 second, I just kicked out the plug. It's lost its heavenly being, and it's come down here. So now, what was once upon a time God's essence and thought and creating a world. Now look at it. It's just a maroon binding and a bunch of pages, and it's a book. It's a book. So that's another one of these tensions, right? On the one hand, there's an earthly existence to the Torah, which makes it absolutely comparable in the same genre or the same in biology, what do you want to call it? Like it's the same species, right? Or the same whatever as Shakespeare or as Jules Verne. Finally, I thought of somebody else. But on the other hand, there is this difference. There is this distinction, and that distinction makes it possible for the Torah to be inexhaustible in a different kind of way, right? I think that's something, again, to keep on thinking about. How many different kinds of ways will the Torah be different for us as we study the Torah in our life? Right? Is it just a really engaging volume? It's an engaging library of books. And, I'm a fan of the Torah the way other people are a fan of Stephen King. Or is there something totally distinguished? It's in a different realm and it's in a different experience. When we read the Torah, no matter how much we're dedicated to reading deeply into something else, reading into the Torah is in some sense some other kind of experience. I think that that's, again, a challenge for all of us. Okay. Any comments?
Hello?
Okay, Sandra, yeah.
Well, I've been listening to you the whole time and I couldn't quite figure out how to unmute my microphone, but maybe that was good. Because if Torah is an essential piece of God, and God creates us, and so we're talking about relationship, and I think all these mysteries, because of God's unknowable aspects, is just it's kind of as you take well, now I'm getting confused. It's like, it's not a tease, but something to aspire to continue to. I keep thinking of the word korban and devekut, to continue to connect, to draw near, to be closer to. So, yeah, I guess walk humbly, of course, but I think, and I don't use the word seduction in a negative way, but, Torah is the path to God, because Torah is God, or a piece of God. So then there's that pull to have that relationship and to continue to want to learn more, to know more, to see more. Because when you said the whole thing about being on the shelf, I thought, yeah, but then you can always pull it down and read something and, oh, there's God, because I'm always reminded of God's waiting. It's us who abandon God, not God who abandons us. So anyway, that's kind of what I had to say.
Thank you. I think that that's fine. I think that that's part of this whole drama that we're talking about, of engaging in Torah in that way.
Yeah,
yes,
I have a thought.
Len.
Yeah. So I think what you're getting at is that the Torah is more than the sum of its parts. I mean, we can study it in an intellectual way. We can read the commentaries. We can read the nice things below the line on Eitz Chaim or other Chumashim. But that there's something else, an ineffable quality to it that is beyond any intellectual study. And so I had two associations to that. The first is Kriyat Torah, that there's something in the chant of the Torah that can lead to or approach that beyond the actual meanings of the words, just getting into the chant itself. The beauty of that, how it illuminates the text, how it takes us beyond the text to someplace else. And it may not be always rational. Some of us may be tuning out from the actual meanings or following it or whatever, but a good chanting, and you happen to have a great Torah chanter in Andy in your shul. He used to be in our shul before you got him, by the way. The other comment is in the Islamic tradition, they also chant the Quran. They have their Qari'an, Qur'ans, their Quran. And I understand that in different Islamic countries, that the person who chants the Quran is almost at the status of rock stars, and they compete amongst themselves and have followers who listen to the chanting of it, and it's probably what our tradition tries to be. They may even do one better in giving people something of the feeling of the Quran. It's more than the individual sutras and more than the individual intellectual meanings of the words and groupings.
Yeah, thank you. I think if you can mute again, that would be great. Sandra, you want to say something?
No.
Then please mute if you can.
I'm trying to figure it out.
You take the
something.
cursor, you bring it down to the bottom of your screen, and the microphone icon comes on, and then you just click it and it mutes.
Rabbi?
Yes, who's this?
Rich.
Yes.
So, while it might be more so than other literature like Shakespeare, it seems part of the problem inevitably is the inadequacy of language shared among all literature, all the more so with the divine.
Yeah, I think that that's a very, very important point too. It's a kind of a paradoxical idea here, that on the one hand, what the Zohar is claiming for this language is infinite, expansive meaning, right? It's a reservoir of so much that can be discovered from it. The well of meaning, we can draw from it forever and ever and ever and never use up the waters. But at the same time, what you're saying is really also very, it's undeniable. Once language is language, it ends up becoming constrained within its limitations. And everybody knows the frustration of sometimes trying to say something and you don't know how to say everything that you feel that you want to say. And sometimes that is part of the limitation of any language. And we have that with translation as well. One language can't adequately capture the whole way that other word conveys so many levels of meaning in its original. So you're right. I think that's another part of these paradoxes, to deal with both the finitude of it, the earthly limitation that language participates in, just like everything else. We are all finite, we are all limited, we are all imperfect, and that means that any human language, any humanly utilized language, any humanly active language, a language active with humans, such as the Torah, is going to have to struggle with that finitude. And that's part of this, again, this kind of push and pull, or this kind of bridging that the Torah is seen to effectuate between the totally finite and limited and the totally infinite and inexhaustible. The Torah is that kind of ladder with its feet on the ground and its head up in the sky, so that the limitations of the Torah are in some way to be accepted, but in other ways they're meant to be clues or hints. Hints is a better word. Hints at what that limitation might be hiding. Right? If we can find a little bit of what the language is not quite succeeding in saying, then that when we find that may actually be a trigger for us to be able to break through and go into that next dimension of reality or of meaning that the language doesn't obviously give. And that's again part of what the Zohar is trying to get us to engage in. To take the language not as being fully adequate and completely accessible on the face of it. It's got to be more. Yeah, I think that we're touching on some very important stuff. I wanna.
This
Yes.
is Carney. I have a musical contribution before we leave, relating to the previous unpacking of the need for humility in the face of God's mystery. I have a favorite Appalachian gospel singer, Iris DeMond, who has a song "Let the Mystery Be," and that's the theme. Everybody always wonders who and where we all came from. I'll just let the mystery be.
So I think that comes back to what Len was talking about before, about when are we supposed to let the hidden stuff just be God's and not try to have the hubris of trying to appropriate it and make something out of it. And I think that this is the complication. I think that there's time for that. Like to paraphrase, Kohelet, to paraphrase Ecclesiastes, there's a time to let the mystery be, and there's a time to pursue the mystery, and to try to penetrate into the mystery, to enter into the mystery. And there's no good, clear rule about which time is which. I want to come back to something that somebody said that made me think of this little piece also. If we do a comparison again between Shakespeare and the Torah, it seems to me maybe we could also play with this a little bit. Every author, Shakespeare and anybody down to the least of them, is in their work, right? Every author is in their writing, in their work. Every composer is in their work. Every artist in any way, any creator is in the work that they create. But it's not always the case that we're interested in that. If we have some kind of fascination, we want to get the dirt on Shakespeare's private life, Shakespeare in love, or something like that. All of that is fine. But in the end, when you're reading Othello or the Scottish play or whatever, it's not necessarily that crucial to know whether or not Shakespeare was 52 or 48 when he wrote this. Was he happily, whatever his life was about? Was he a wonderful man? Was he a mamzer? Whatever it is that you want to say about a human being is not necessarily that really crucial for getting into the depths of their creation. But here with the Zohar, it seems to me that getting to know the author, getting to know the artist, is really, in a sense, what it's all about, right? The unfolding through language, through Torah, is an unfolding of the creator himself, herself. And that's in the end what we're trying to grasp. We're trying to become closer, as we said before, to the Kutchabrichu, to the Holy Blessed One. And what the Zohar does again and again and again, by showing us, you think that Abraham is digging a well or whatever. That's not what it is. It's really this part of God is doing this part with this part of God, right? They're constantly actually turning the language of the Torah into a lens for us to be able to see into the artist, to see into the author, the author's own life, the author's own being, the author's own personality, the author's own essence. It's a little bit different. There's a unity, back to what we were talking about before. There's a unity between the creation and the creator that is, I would argue at this moment, much closer and much more extreme than the unity of the creator and the creation in human terms, no matter how great those human creations are. Okay. Does again, anybody want to go beyond this? Anybody want to say something?
Yeah, actually, as you're speaking, it occurs to me that there is a phenomenon wherein an author writes and the reader interprets the writing in a way that the author never dreamt. So, I don't. I find it disturbing in the context of this conversation.
Okay.
But isn't that what all writers hope for? I
don't know.
do. I do.
Maybe. Oh, well, maybe.
Well, so that's a you know, this is a perennial question, right? This is a question that all readers have had and all critics have had. You know, when is it legitimate to offer an interpretation that somebody else will claim? Are you kidding? That is so not what the author intended. Is the once the creation is put out there, is it open to interpretations that go not only beyond but even against the intentions of the author? And then it comes, and if you want to bring it here, if you say that it's possible, first of all, it's possible. The question is it legitimate? So
Such
many
as
people,
the Sanhedrin in the case of their disagreement with, I forget who the
Rabbi Eliezer,
yeah.
right. So there's the question: is that okay? Is it okay to understand the creation that's put out there by the artist, by the creator, in a way that they never intended, or even against the way they intended? So what Carney was saying is, yeah, I welcome that. I, as a writer, welcome that, because it then opens up my eyes to what I've done. And that's going back to this idea of there's a distinction. The creation takes on a life of its own. And then once the creation is given over to the viewer, to the reader, to the listener, to whoever it is that this creation is handed over to, the power that second party has is enormous with regard to making some sense out of it, or deciding what it's all about. And is that okay with the author or not? Well, the author can either just shrug their shoulders and say, "Hey, I have no control. I have to admit it," or they can, while they're still alive, they can vituperate and try to make clearer and clearer what they're trying to say and not be misunderstood.
I wonder if this is how God feels.
Right. So that's what David's question was leading to. So then,
how would you have midrash without it?
right? So that's the thing. Is there right interpretation of the Torah versus wrong interpretation of the Torah? And of course, the answer is yes. My interpretation is right, and yours is wrong. So, but yes, this is a crucial, mysterious question. And in that story with Rabbi Eliezer, when one of the sages asked Elijah, "So how did God take it? How did God take it when we totally rejected what God wanted?" And the Elijah said, God chuckled and said, "Nitzchuni banai, nitzchuni banai. My children have been victorious over me. They won. Good for them." With a chuckle, with a laugh. So God, in good nature, said, "Yeah, I know. This is what it's about. This is the way it goes. This is inherent in the production of such an item." So that's a kind of a meta answer, that there is no wrong interpretation, because that's inherent in the creation to itself. The creation couldn't exist without the possibility of interpretation that would go against the intention of the author. But there's another way of looking at it. When we have and this is a subject that can go on forever. When we have, for instance, two sages or two camps disagreeing with one another, and it's not and the disagreement is one of contradiction. Either the answer is pure or the answer is impure. Either the answer is kosher or the answer is treif. Either the answer is innocent or the answer is guilty. So one of them, according to Western logic, has to be right, and one of them has to be wrong. It's the law of contradiction. So, and yet what the rabbis said was, no, a voice from heaven came out and said, with regard to the ongoing disputes between the house of Hillel and the house of Shammai, Elu va'elu divrei Elokim chayim. These and these are all the words of the living God. So, and this has engendered a tremendous amount of discussion in literature as well. The idea being that Shakespeare or Carney no offense, Carney, but have finite being and therefore finite intentions. But if God is the author, then we can't even presume to think about what does it mean that God's intent is this and not that. We have no grasp of God's intention in any but the most puny matter. And so therefore, when I say yes and you say no in God's name, then there's maybe yes. Maybe the yes is a yes and maybe the no is a no, both in some way in the infinite. We'll leave that paradox for now. And we have to remember that the next 2 Thursdays are Yom Tov. So we will not be meeting. And I look forward to coming back together again after Pesach. And I want to wish everyone as sweet a Pesach as you can make it during these very trying and strange times. So I want to wish everybody sei gesund and be well.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Happy Passover.
So I can send
Be
to you.
right back.